colors. I have.
He might have been 6 or 7 years older than Ezio. Madonna Auditore, welcome. I've been expecting you. Leonardo, buongiorno. The two exchanged formal kisses. The artist must be well in with my mother, thought Ezio, but already he liked the look of the man. This is my son Ezio, continued Maria. The artist bowed. Leonardo da Vinci, he said. Molto onorato, signore. Maestro? Not quite that yet, smiled Leonardo. But what am I thinking of? Come in, wait here. I'll see if my assistant can find some wine for you while I go and get your paintings. The studio was not large, but the clutter in it made it look even smaller than it was. Tables were heaped with the skeletons of birds and small mammals, while jars filled with colourless fluid contained organic objects of one kind or another, though Ezio was hard put to it to recognize any of them. A broad workbench at the back held some curious structures painstakingly crafted in wood, and 2 easels bore unfinished paintings whose tones were darker than usual and whose outlines were less clearly defined. Ezio and Maria made themselves comfortable, and emerging from an inner room, a handsome youth appeared with a tray bearing wine and small cakes. He served them, smiled shyly, and withdrew. Leonardo is very talented. If you say so, madre, I know little of art. Ezio thought that his life would consist of following in his father's footsteps, even though, deep within him, there was a rebellious and adventurous streak which he knew would sit ill in the character of a Florentine banker. In any case, like his older brother, he saw himself as a man of action, not as an artist or a connoisseur. You know, self-expression is a vital part of understanding life and enjoying it to the full. She looked at him. You should find an outlet yourself, my dear. Ezio was piqued. I have plenty of outlets. I meant apart from tarts, retorted his mother matter-of-factly. Mother! But Maria's only answer to that was a shrug and a pursing of her lips. It would be good if you could cultivate a man like Leonardo as a friend. I think he has a promising future ahead of him. From the look of this place, I'm inclined to disagree with you. Don't be cheeky. They were interrupted by Leonardo's return from his inner room, carrying 2 boxes. He set one down on the ground. Do you mind carrying that one? He asked Ezio. I'd ask Agnolo, but he has to stay and guard the shop. Also, I don't think he's strong enough for this kind of work, poor dear. Ezio stooped to pick up the box and was surprised at how heavy it was. He almost dropped it. Careful, warned Leonardo. The paintings in there are delicate, and your mother just paid me good money for them. Shall we go? Said Maria. I can't wait to hang them. I've selected places which I hope you'll approve of, she added to Leonardo. Ezio balked at this a little. Was a fledgling artist really worth such deference? As they walked, Leonardo chatted amiably, and Ezio found that despite himself he was won over by the other man's charm. And yet there was something about him that he instinctively found disquieting, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. A coolness? A sense of detachment from his fellow beings? Perhaps it was just that he had his head in the clouds, like so many other artists, or so Ezio was told. But Ezio felt an instinctive respect for the man. So, Ezio, what do you do? Leonardo asked him. He works for his father, Maria replied. Ah, a financier. Well, you were born in the right city for that. It's a good city for artists, too, said Ezio. All those rich patrons. There are so many of us, though, grumbled Leonardo. It's hard to attract attention. That's why I am so indebted to your mother. Mind you, she has a very discerning eye. Do you concentrate on painting? Asked Ezio, thinking of the diversity he'd seen in the studio. Leonardo looked thoughtful. That's a hard question. To tell the truth, I'm finding it difficult to settle down to anything now I'm on my own. I adore painting, and I know I can do it, but somehow I can see the end before I get there, and that makes it hard to finish things sometimes. I have to be pushed, but that's not all. I often feel that my work lacks, I don't know, purpose. Does that make any sense? You should have more faith in yourself, Leonardo, said Maria. Thank you, but there are moments when I think I'd rather do more practical work that has a direct bearing on life. I want to understand life, how it works, how everything works. Then you'd have to be 100 men in one, said Ezio. If only I could be. I know what I want to explore, architecture, anatomy, engineering even. I don't want to capture the world with my brush. I want to change it. He was so impassioned that Ezio was more impressed than irritated. The man clearly wasn't boasting. If anything, he seemed almost tormented by the ideas that simmered within him. Next thing, thought Ezio, is that he'll tell us he's involved with music and poetry as well. Do you want to put that down and rest for a moment, Ezio? Leonardo asked. It might be a bit too heavy for you. Ezio gritted his teeth. No, grazie. Anyway, we're almost there. When they arrived at the Palazzo Auditore, he carried his box into the entrance hall and set it down as slowly and as carefully as his aching muscles would let him, and he was more relieved than he'd ever admit, even to himself. Thank you, Ezio, said his mother. I think we can manage very well without you now, though of course if you wish to come and help with the hanging of the pictures. Thank you, Mother. I think that's a job best left to the two of you. Leonardo held out his hand. It was very good to meet you, Ezio. I hope our paths cross again soon. Ancio. You might just call one of the servants to give Leonardo a hand, Maria told him. No, said Leonardo. I prefer to take care of this myself. Imagine if someone dropped one of the boxes. And bending his knees, he hoisted the box Ezio had put down into the crook of his arm. Shall we? He said to Maria. This way, said Maria. Goodbye, Ezio. I'll see you at dinner this evening. Come, Leonardo. Ezio watched as they left the hall. This Leonardo was obviously one to respect. After lunch, late in the afternoon, Giulio came hurrying, as he always did, to tell him that his father required his presence in the office. Ezio hastened to follow the secretary down the long oak-lined corridor that led to the back of the mansion. Ah, Ezio, come in, my boy. Giovanni's tone was serious and businesslike. He stood up behind his desk on which two bulky letters lay, wrapped in vellum and sealed. They say Duke Lorenzo will return tomorrow or the day after at the latest, said Ezio. I know, but there is no time to waste. I want you to deliver these to certain associates of mine here in the city. He pushed the letters across the desk. Yes, father. I also need you to retrieve a message which a carrier pigeon should have brought to the coop in the piazza at the end of the street. Try to make sure no one sees you fetch it. I'll see to it. Good. Come back here immediately after you've finished. I have some important things I need to discuss with you. Sir. So, this time, behave. No scrapping this time. Ezio decided to tackle the pigeon coop first. Dusk was approaching, and he knew there'd be few people out at that time. A little later, the square would be thronged with Florentines making their passeggiata. When he reached his goal, he noticed some graffiti on the wall behind and above the coop. He was puzzled. Was it recent, or had he just never been aware of it before? Carefully inscribed was a line he recognized from the book of Ecclesiastes. He that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. A little below this, someone had added in a ruder script, Where is the prophet? But his mind soon returned to his task. He recognized the pigeon he was after instantly. It was the only one with a note attached to its leg. He detached it quickly and gently placed the bird back on its ledge. Then he hesitated. Should he read the note? It wasn't sealed. Quickly he unrolled the little scroll and found it contained nothing but a name, that of Francesco de Pazzi. Ezio shrugged. He supposed that would mean something more to his father than it did to him. Why the name of Vieri's father and one of the possible conspirators in a plot to topple the Duke of Milan, facts already known to Giovanni, should be of further significance was beyond him, unless it signified some kind of confirmation. But he had to hurry on with his work. Stashing the note in his belt pouch, he made his way to the address on the first envelope. Its location surprised him, for it was the red light district. He'd been there often with Federico, before he had met Christina, that is, but he had never felt comfortable there. He placed a hand on his dagger hilt to reassure himself as he approached the dingy alley his father had indicated. The address turned out to be a low tavern, ill-lit and serving cheap Chianti in clay beakers. At a loss about what to do next, for there seemed to be no one about, he was surprised by a voice at his side. "You Giovanni's boy?" He turned to confront a rough-looking man whose breath smelled of onions. He was accompanied by a woman who might once have been pretty, but it looked as if 10 years on her back had rubbed most of any loveliness away. If it was left anywhere, it was in her clear, intelligent eyes. "No, you idiot," she said to the man. "He just happens to look exactly like his father." "You got something for us?" said the man, ignoring her. "Give it here." Ezio hesitated. He checked the address. It was the right one. "Hand it over, friend," said the man, leaning closer. Ezio got a full blast of his breath. Did the man live on onions and garlic? He placed the letter in the man's open hand, which closed round it immediately, and transferred it to a leather pouch at his side. "Good boy," he said, and then smiled. Ezio was surprised to see that the smile gave his face a certain surprising nobility, but not his words. "And don't worry," he said, "we ain't contagious." He paused to glance at the woman. "At least, I ain't." The woman laughed and punched his arm. Then they were gone. Ezio made his way out of the alley with relief. The address on the second letter directed him to a street just west of the baptistry. A much better district, but a quiet one at this time of day. He hastened across town. Waiting for him under an arch which spanned the street was a burly man who looked like a soldier. He was dressed in what looked like leather country clothes, but he smelled clean and fresh, and he was clean-shaven. "Over here," he beckoned. "I have something for you," said Ezio, "from Giovanni Auditore." The man spoke little above a whisper. "Si." The man glanced around, up and down the street. Only a lamplighter was visible some distance away. "Were you followed?" "No. Why should I have been?" "Never mind. Give me the letter, quickly." Ezio handed it over. "Things are heating up," said the man. "Tell your father they're making a move tonight. He should make plans to get to safety." Ezio was taken aback. What? What are you talking about?" "I've already said too much. Hurry home." And the man melted into the shadows. "Wait!" Ezio called after him. "What do you mean? Come back!" But the man was gone. Ezio walked quickly up the street to the lamplighter. "What time is it?" he asked. The man screwed up his eyes and looked at the sky. "Must be an hour since I came on duty," he said. "Makes it about the 20th hour." Ezio made a quick calculation. He must have left his palazzo 2 hours earlier, and it would take him perhaps 20 minutes to reach home again. He took off at a run. Some awful premonition caught at his soul. As soon as he came within sight of the Auditore mansion, he knew something was wrong. There were no lights anywhere, and the great front doors stood open. He quickened his pace, calling as he ran, "Father! Federico!" The great hall of the palazzo stood dark and empty, but there was enough light for Ezio to see tables overturned, chairs smashed, broken crockery and glassware.